how to create a form group, and how do we create a form control. These two things we learned. So dynamically we create a group, we can create a control. Yesterday we were discussing about nested forms. So we can create nested forms. Let's see how to create nested forms. In the components, we have reactive demo, reactive form. So we want to create nested forms. How do we design a nested form and configure? Let's see. For example, I will delete this and the presentation also. We will remove this. Yeah. It's an empty page. Let's run this local host. It is an empty one currently. Now, yesterday we discussed that it is not possible to have a form inside another form. Then how you do that? We create a container and make it behave like a form so that we can achieve partial postbacks. That means we can achieve the concept of asynchronous. Entire form is not posted, only specific portion of the form is posted. How to create nested forms, we will see. Yesterday I explained syntax. So how to create the nested forms? Now we will create here a property that is a FRM register, and it is what type? Form group type. It is a new form group. In this, we will have some fields like name is a new form control, and the control is initially having value empty. It is a string. Next, we have price, another new form control. It is of type number. Okay. After that, after defining name and price, here we want to maintain vendor details. Vendor means the people who can supply that product. So their form is separate. That means inside this form, I want another form. Then we will write FRM vendor. This FRM vendor is a new form group again, another form inside. You can see it is another form group. And you see by default, it says it is an asynchronous. By default, the validations, the controls, all are what type? Async type. And you can see here, in this, I want vendor name. Vendor name, it is a new form control again. And a form control string, and we have vendor rating, and a new form control here, that is some 0. This is a nested form we created. Now we need to apply this form to the UI in the front end. Now, how we can configure that? We are creating product register, and here we designed a form. This should be binded with parent form. That should be binded with the parent form, this one. Then which property we have to use for that? Form group, the property. And what is the form group? FRM register. Okay. So here, let's see. Yep. Here we are applying the parent one. The parent one is form group, and it is which one? FRM register. Now in this, we are designing a simple form. This is having a heading called product details. In the product details, we have data term. One is name, and we have input type is equal to text. We need to bind this with this field. Then what we have to do? We need to configure form control name. Form control name. Form control name is what? Name. Okay, next one is another data term price. This we need to bind with input type is equal to text. Form control name. Control name. Form control name is what? Price. So we are defining name and price. Now inside this, we need, now this is the main form actually. In this, we have another form to create. And that is actually vendor details. We want vendor details. That means here inside the form, I can't create another form because HTML syntax, you cannot have a form inside another form. Yesterday we discussed that. Then how to design a form? You need to create a container. This container I will give here as so vendor details. And this container should work like a form. Then what we have to do is we need to define a property here as it should have a property form group name. Form group is for parent and form group name is for child. And form group name, what is the form group name? This is the form group, child form. What is its name? FRM. FRM what? Vendor. Now in this FRM vendor, we have details. What are the details in that? You have vendor name and vendor rating. Now tell me how to access vendor name and vendor rating. Remember, they are embedded objects. You came to TypeScript class now. In TypeScript, I told you one concept. If an element is present at lengthy hierarchy, how to easily access it? If an element is present at a multi-level hierarchy, currently vendor rating is present where? FRM register, in FRM register, FRM vendor, in FRM vendor, we have vendor rating. That means what is the hierarchy for that? The hierarchy is what? FRM register. In that FRM vendor. In that, so we have vendor name, vendor rating like this. Now, if you remembered when we learned about TypeScript, so only rating we can access directly. How? Without referring this complete hierarchy, we can access this directly. For that, we discussed a concept in TypeScript called accessors. You remember that? That is why we said that TypeScript is compulsory. Some people think that Angular is important and they ignore TypeScript. That means you are not an Angular developer. You will fail every interview. We will give guarantee. We will give guarantee that you will fail every interview if you are not good in TypeScript. Because they don't test in Angular much. They test always in TypeScript only. Because many people think that I can learn TypeScript later. Angular is first important. Many people ignore and don't come to TypeScript classes. They come directly from Angular because they think themselves as genius people. They think they are not actually. That is their think, the confidence over confidence. And you will not able to handle Angular like technology without complete knowledge of TypeScript. If you have missed TypeScript classes and you are attending Angular, then time waste. Better join some another batch. It's not suitable for you. You can't handle. So already very, very clearly I explained, compulsory you need good knowledge of TypeScript. Otherwise, nothing you can manage in Angular. So I told you the purpose of accessor, two purpose I told you. One is we can control the behavior of a property. I showed you one example, read only and not read only, read write. Another is you can access accessor from any level of hierarchy. Right now, tell me how to create an accessor to access vendor rating and vendor name. Because if any control is present in a nested hierarchy, you can't directly use it. You can't directly use it. Angular will not allow to use it. That means now see here, in vendor details, I will put another data list. In the data term, I will say vendor name. And here I need to put a text box. Input type is equal to text. And now tell me how to bind form control name. We need a form control name. Na? Form control name. How you define the form control name? How to define the form control name? How to define the form control name? Now tell me, is it directly vendor name? It is not directly vendor name, because vendor name, it will look inside this hierarchy. Understood? But it is present in a child form. Na? It is present in a child form. Then we cannot access like this. FRM register dot FRM vendor. So in that, what is that? In that we have a vendor name. This is not possible. This lengthy approach of referring, that is not good. Then what we do, what is the concept? Suppose I want one more option here. What is it? Another one is vendor rating. Another term, what is it? Vendor rating. I will give another one, input type is equal to some number. And what is the form control name? Form control name is what? FRM register. In that FRM vendor. In that what? Vendor rating. Vendor rating. We need to bind like this. Now I will put a button here. We will put a button. And we will keep the button as register. And on register, we need to collect the data. So we will write here a submit event. We will write submit click. Okay, register click. On submit, register click. On register click, we will send FRM register dot value. That means all the form data. And we will collect that here. What is the method we are expecting? Function. So public, what is it? So this is register click. On register click, we are accessing data of what type? Any. I will put alert. I will say JSON dot stringify whatever data comes. Now see in this design, here we are entering name. So this is some name. So, and I entered some price. Vendor details. So vendor name, some Reliance Digital, something. And vendor rating, some 3.2. And click on register. It should get all the details, but these are missing. vendor name and vendor rating is missing. Other details it is able to access, but vendor name and vendor rating is missing. We provided them, but it is unable to handle the fields which are present in a inner hierarchy. So if any field is there in a form at very inner hierarchy, you cannot directly access them and use them. So what you have to do with your TypeScript knowledge, you have to create an accessor which can return that directly. How to create an accessor? We learned. We can use accessor, getter and setter. So get, I will give vendor name. And what this accessor have to return? It should return this dot FRM register dot, in that FRM vendor, FRM register dot, in that what? FRM vendor. So FRM vendor. In FRM vendor, you have to access. But observe carefully, in that FRM register, so FRM vendor is not available. It is saying not there. Doesn't exist. Why it doesn't exist? It is there. Na? It is there, but it is showing that it doesn't exist. Why? Because actually it is a child element of this parent. This is actually ng form. This is a parent form. Huh? And observe, in the parent form, this is also a form group only. This is also form group. The parent one is also a form group. Now see, it is not directly accessible. Now we will do one thing here. So here I will use FRM register dot. You can see it will get lot of options here. In this, you will see lot of accessors will be there. Currently, you are using an accessor. Na? Accessor means what is the accessor? Get. Get, what is the path? Which control you want to access? You need to refer to that path. What is the control you want to access from this FRM register? From FRM register, we need to access which control, which element. So we want to access, so path I am giving. Here it is expecting, see, it is expecting a path. It is defining a name and defining a path. But actually here FRM register, it is an object type, then you can access. This is not a object type, it is a group type. Generally in JavaScript object, what happens? If any hierarchy is present, dot, 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 you can use. But this is an object type. That means you have to use get. Get which one? For example, I'm giving, so vendor name. I'm giving vendor name. But is that vendor name directly available? That vendor name is not directly available. I am defining this vendor name, and I am returning that vendor name. That means we are fetching this vendor name and returning the vendor name. Now this is an accessor which will search for this vendor name. But that vendor name is not directly available. It is not directly available. Let's check. We will apply this vendor name. That means what we have to do, form control name. Here it is which one? Directly the accessor name. What is the accessor name? Vendor name. Directly the vendor name is defined. Now you can see here, I am entering name, I am entering price, and I am entering vendor name, some Reliance, and I am entering some rating, and click on register. Now you can see it is available. That means it is present at any hierarchy inside that form. You can access by using an accessor. And inside ng form, there is an accessor which can search anywhere inside it. Any level, it can search by the IDs, by the name of the form that you have created. If you're not feeling well, you go out. Go. Go, man. All right. Go immediately. Yeah, come on, get up. Right. Take your books and go. Uh, right now you can see here, this is going to sender. The vendor name is, it is going to send the details. At any hierarchy you can access. Now, okay. Now, similarly, how we can access rating, you know what to do. So what we have to do here, and one more point is that this is okay, it is working, but this is not good coding. Why it is not good coding? Because the application need to correctly understand why you are giving like a string. That means this vendor name becomes a string actually. But is it a string? It is not a string. It is a control. Na? That means it is a form control. So this accessor should return this vendor name as a control. Then I can use its value pristine, dirty. Otherwise, validations will not work. If you try to use validations on this control, it will say on string how you can use pristine and dirty. On string how you can use invalid, valid. String don't have any valid, invalid. Currently it is working fine, but your validations will not work. Why? Because it is now treated as what type? String. So we will tell the compiler that convert this as form control. Understood? When you convert this as form control, now you can see it is showing some problem. It is saying that how you are defining as a form control because its data type is unknown. That means initially it is unknown, then I am unable to understand its control type. So this technique is used in the Angular versions up to 14. Angular up to 14, this is required to mention what is the type of the control. But from Angular 15, they made reactive forms more better. 15 onwards, they made reactive forms more better. So you just mention the field, it can easily identify that. You can observe carefully. You don't mention the type. This, you will see this syntax by everybody who are using Angular. Because up to 14, that is the concept, how you have to define. But Angular 15 introduced new features into reactive form. So what are the changes made in Angular 15? So many changes made which you already learned as a part of this. But one main change you need to notice is about one change I told you already, errors, form related. Another change is about reactive forms. They made the reactive forms very effective. They made the reactive forms strongly typed. Strongly typed means I am not giving as form control. I am not giving as form control. This vendor name is already treated as a control. That means you are not mentioning as a control, but it is internally treating as a control. By understanding its hierarchy, it can understand what is the type and it can return that type. That's very, very good. Now it is very less effort from the developer side because we don't need to tell in which type it should convert. This was not there in Angular up to 14 version. It's not there. Up to 14 version, every developer have to write as what control it should return, form control. You should mention the type. Now they made the forms more effective so that reactive forms specially. The new changes in Angular 15 is one of the major changes in the forms, not in template forms. Template forms are same, no change. Only errors changed in template forms. But in reactive forms, they changed all this. That's the reason any hierarchy you can easily access by using an accessor called get. And you can easily identify, it is intelligent enough to identify what type of element it is. By just referring to name, it can understand. That means you tell its name, it will tell what it is. Is it a control? Is it a group? It can understand that. So similarly, we have to use another one, another accessor. What is it? Vendor rating. And what it should return? It should return this dot FRM register dot get. What it should get? Vendor rating. That is how we need to configure. Now this we need to bind to the form. Here we need to bind to the form. We don't need all these. We just need to configure vendor rating. Now it is able to handle the details. I entered the name. I entered some price. So I entered vendor name, some Bajaj, something like this. So, and I entered some reference here, vendor rating, and I say register, then it should get all the details and display. It is now easy to handle the data. That is what actually nested forms are. Nested forms, you can create a form inside another form. But in reality, you cannot have a form inside another form. But it works like a form because this div, this container works like a form now. It is like a form. Now, what is the specialty? You can submit only specific details without submitting all details. For example, I am just giving here another button, and this button type I will give as button, not submit. And I will give the button text as update. You know that if you don't give button type in HTML, default button type will be submit. You know, na, HTML have two types of buttons, generic buttons and non-generic. So non-generic buttons are button type button is non-generic. Button type submit, button type reset. These are called generic buttons. In HTML, two types of buttons are there, generic and non-generic. And if you don't mention the type, then by default, every button is an submit. It is a submit button. So we will change the button type as button. And update, we will write a logic here. You can see here, I am writing a function, method, public, what it is, update click. On update click, we will access this dot FRM register. In this FRM register, we are updating few details. What are the details to be updated? I am not updating name. I am just updating, suppose, price. That means I have to update price. Price with what is the data to be updated? You have to define the price value. But remember, on update click, we need to update these details inside this form. Then yesterday I told you we have two methods. What are those two methods to update? One, you can use the option. What is it? You can use update. You can use update, or you can use, I told you, patch value. Am I right? Patch value is used for updating only partial details. You can see it says partial. I told you asynchronous main concept is partial postbacks. That means if you are asked in interview like what is the purpose of AJAX, you tell 100 answers. Interviewer is not satisfied until or unless you use the word partial postback, because that is the main architectural concept of AJAX. If you don't use the word partial postback, then he will be keep on answering, no, I want the correct answer. In many interviews, you will face this problem. You are giving the correct point answer, but still he is not satisfied. He says, your faculty tells you that as an answer, right? But his interviewer is not satisfied. Then you will be confused. Is it correct answer? My faculty told me. Your faculty told you the correct answer, but problem is he told you an architectural answer also. You forgot that. That architectural answer that interviewer expects. You tell 100 points, 100 answers related to that. Architectural answer you miss. Then he will not satisfy. You tell about AJAX so many things. He will not be satisfied. What is the primary keyword you have to tell about AJAX? Partial postback. Even you say asynchronous, he is not satisfied. Right? So you have to use the word partial post back. That is the main aim of Ajax actually. Now patch value, what price? I want to patch price. Price how much? Some 70,000 I will patch that value. After that, I don't want other details. I want directly FRM vendor. In FRM vendor, I want to update. I want to update only specific details. What is that update to be updated here? I want only vendor rating. Vendor rating as suppose 4.1. These are the details I want to update. Others no need. That is the advantage. Now you can see here, when I'm entering the details here, I'm entering the details. I entered some price. I entered some vendor name, Reliance. Okay. Vendor rating, I entered some 5. Now, when we define this, so here you can see on update click what will happen. On update click what it will do. You can see it will update only those details. Click not written. I think we haven't written update click. So what you have to do now, update click should fire up when user clicks on this button. So on click, what we have to do? Update click. That is the method to fire up. Okay. Now let's make the changes. I am entering the details here. Price is something and vendor name is something and vendor rating is some 5. But when I click on update, it is going to update only those details. And remember, form is not submitted. Without submitting the complete form, only specific portion is updated. And when I click on register, entire details are updated here. Entire details are posted here. So that means when update is clicked without submitting the form, it can modify certain details. It can change certain details. That is the advantage of asynchronous. That means generally any form have to update by sending all details. But if you can update the details of a form partially, then that is the result of Ajax. That is the concept of Ajax, right? This is a nested form, means how you can use a nested form. This is an example for that, how to create a nested form. Yesterday, I already given you syntax now. I will give an example here. What is it? Example. First, I will give a note here. So you have to access any nested control from a form by using accessors. That is compulsory. So how do we do? We need a get some vendor name and how it returns that name. This dot return, it returns this dot, what is it? Form FRM register dot what get. Get we have vendor name as form control. This is Angular up to 14. Understood? Angular up to 14. So up to 14, this is the syntax. Now in Angular 15, you don't need that. So in syntax Angular 15, you just need to define the same thing. So what you have to do, you don't need to mention as a control. It is by default used as a control. So, and remember, this is up to 14 from 11. Before Angular 11, we don't need accessors. We can directly access. Before 11, we don't have accessors. We can directly access. So, but now currently 11 version is not in use. That means it is no longer supported officially. But earlier is that. So you cannot access directly the elements now. So even you try to access, it is not returning any value. But earlier it was possible. Up to 14 you have to mention, and 15 made this. Actually, why it is possible? Because so Angular 15, what is the concept? Angular 15, so introduced strongly typed reactive forms. That is what actually speciality of Angular 15 forms. It introduced strongly typed reactive forms, which will help developers in a way that no need to mention about what type it is. Automatically it recognizes the type by the name itself. That is one concept. This is example I will give. In this example, so this is reactive form dot component dot ts. Reactive form component dot ts. Let me copy this. That is the code. And reactive form HTML. Reactive form dot component dot HTML. Reactive form component dot HTML. In this HTML, I will copy this code. That is how we need to configure. Okay. Now, another important is, this is fine. This is working fine. This is everything okay. But when you show this logic to any senior software developer, when you show this part to any senior software developer, this part, then he will not be satisfied with this declaration. He will not be satisfied with this declaration. Any senior software engineer is not satisfied with this. Why? Is there any problem in this? You are creating FRM register. In the FRM register, how you are mentioning that it as a group, by using which operator you are doing that new. What does new means? So new is a dynamic memory allocating operator. It is a dynamic memory allocating operator. So it is creating a separate memory to store the data of form. And after you finished using that memory, it is destroyed because it is dynamic. Dynamic memory always destroyed after the current object. And you see, you are creating a new memory for form and again a new memory for every control. How many new memories you will create? This is complicated. In reality, this is not satisfied. That means this is not a good way. That means same concept. It is using single call mechanism. That means I am using the same form again and again. I want to use the same form because suppose any error occurred, then if any error occurred, same form should load again. When same form loads again, memory newly allocated again. Every time the form loads, a new memory is allocated. This is not satisfied. So you show this type of logic to any software developer. If any software developer see new so many times, that means he will ask why you are allocating so many memories. This is not a satisfying thing. Why can't you use the memory of your component? If you can use the memory of your component for handling these forms, that is good enough. Right? We want a singleton mechanism. not single call mechanism. At the time of creating component, memory allocated for form, and it should be available. That is the point here. That is the problem in this area. Now here, so here one important question is, so one important question you need to know is the frequently asked, this is, the question is, what is the issue with form group and form control? So answer is, they use memory, dynamic memory. So which refers to single call. What is single call? I already told you. Which refers to single call. Then what is the solution? The solution, better you can use a form builder. You can use a form builder. That means the solution. So better to use form builder. Better to use form builder. Now the point is, what is this form builder? What is difference between a form group and a form builder? Form builder is nothing but, form builder, it is a service. And you know what a service can do. Service, what service can do? Service uses which pattern? Singleton pattern. It uses a singleton pattern. That means it is good. It is good for forms that have to use continuous memory. That means it is good for forms that have to use continuous memory. If you want to use continuous memory, then this is the best way. This is the best option to use continuous memory. That means memory allocated for component will be used by form. And for that you need, that means you have to inject. You have to, service, how to use a service. You have to inject form builder. You have to inject form builder into component. Service need to be injected into component. It's a predefined service. And how to inject into a component, you need a constructor. Am I right? In constructor, private, some form builder. It is of what type? Form builder type. It's just a reference. Now, once you injected, now what happens is, form builder provides, form builder service provides various methods. And what are those methods? One method is group. It provides a group method. Group method, it is used to configure a form or a child form. You can configure a form or child form by using group. And you have a control. Control is used. So it is used to configure a control. And it have an array. It is used to maintain. It is used to configure a form array with a set of controls. That is what actually the purpose. Form builder provides methods like group, like control, like form array. Now what is the point is, without using a single call mechanism, you can use a singleton mechanism. That means avoid allocating memory every time. But then why they given that? Already we know that, depending on situation. If you want a form to reset every time, because sometimes you can see, suppose you are doing some bank transactions and you are adding some customer beneficiary. You are adding a beneficiary to do some transfer. To do money transfer from bank account, you need to add him as a beneficiary. You are adding as a beneficiary. You might have seen, if you are using online accounts and all, you know that in the beneficiary details, if anything is, you have to fill a form. Beneficiary name, account number, IFSC code, and everything you have to fill up. If there any invalid thing, it will reset the complete form. It will simply say that fill up again. It will not save the account number that you previously entered. So it will say fill up again complete. It will not keep those details because they are not safe. I want a form in such a way that it should not cache the data. Once it is gone permanently. That means I don't want to save its information. That is not good idea. Then for that, you can use form groups. But I want a form to recall the previous details I entered. Then better you go with a form builder. Because form builder will give a continuous memory. And form group will reset the memory. I hope you understood. That means when you are entering some very private details, like, so you see payment details, like you entered credit card number. Several forms you entered credit card number, some other details went wrong. Next time when screen opens, that credit card number is not saved. It is cleaned up. Because that's not safe to do that. That's the reason we use form groups for that situation. But in every situation, it is not good idea. Then we have to use a form builder. So everything same, only a slight, only declaration change. That's it. That means what you have to do, nothing to do anything here. Just what you have to do is your HTML is same. Your complete logic is same. Only this part will change. Only this part will change. Let's see how to do that. I will comment this /* and */. You know, multi-line comments. Huh? Now this is commented. Actually, this is the previous approach. Now see the new approach now. New approach is nothing but first you need to import whom? You need to import a form builder. Form builder is a service. It is a service. How to inject a service, you know. To inject a service, we need a constructor. Am I right? Into the constructor, we are configuring. What is it? So we are configuring that. So what is that? We are defining private. So private FB, it is what type? Form builder type. We are configuring that. Now how to define the form? How to configure the form? How to initialize the form? Okay, form builder is ready. Then how you will initialize it? How you configure and initialize it? For example, I am writing here. So public FRM what? Register. And you can see here I am defining. So this dot FB dot, what is it? Group. It is a form group. Understood? We are configuring a form group now. And in this form group, there is no new keyword here. There is no new keyword because the memory is allocated at the time of creating the component. And we are using that memory. Okay, what are the fields in it? We need a name. Name should be what? This dot FB dot control. It should be a control with string empty. So what is the next one? Price. So we need price. Okay, price must be what type? This dot FB dot what? Control. It is a number. What is the next one? FRM vendor. Child form na? FRM vendor. This is again a form group. This dot what? FB dot group. This is another group. In this group again what? We need a vendor name. So we defined vendor name. Vendor name again this dot FB dot what? Control. It's a string type. And we need vendor rating, and it is what type? This dot FB dot control. This is a number type. Now the form is ready. This is only the change we have done. And your accessors are same. Your update method, submit method is same. Your UI is same. There is no change in the UI. No change in the UI. Form groups, form control names, everything same. Only the way you declared the memory changed. Declared the memory change. Now I can delete this part. I just commented that. I removed that part. Now this is only form builder. No new memory allocated here. Now I am trying here the details to enter. Name, I am entering some price and I am selecting some vendor name. So Reliance and some vendor rating, some 5. I click on update, it is updating. And I click on register, it is submitting. Everything same. But this time, this is very good if you want continuous memory. If you want to handle continuous memory, then this is very good because this is not using dynamic memory. It is not using dynamic memory. There is no new. It is using like a static memory. So what is advantage of this? If you want a form which need to remember your form data and give it whenever required again on various requests, then go with this. If you want your form not to remember the form data and reset every time, then better go with form groups and form controls directly. We haven't made any change anywhere else. Just you need to make the change in the way how you declare the form group and declare the form controls. That is the purpose actually for. That is the concept of these form groups. Understood? So now what change I have done? Only this block. By injecting a service. What is it? Form builder. Right? So same concept. So let's go here. Example. So in this example, not to make any change anywhere else, just we have to make change reactive form dot component dot what ts. HTML is same, no change in HTML, right? So this is what the concept of form builder. What is difference between form group and form builder? Form group uses single call mechanism. Form builder uses an singleton mechanism. And very important is actually here, you have this array option. I showed you control and I showed you group. What is this array? Array is nothing but it is a collection of controls. It is a collection of controls. What is the speciality of array? Actually, so array purpose is actually what is the purpose of these three things? One is A, this is group. Group method, it configures form element. And what is the next one? Control, it configures what? It configures input, it configures select, it configures text area. All the form elements are defined by this. What is the array concept? Array is nothing but it allows to change, to add, remove elements dynamically. That is the point. A form can change dynamically with the concept of an array. Array is not just a collection. One of the advantages of array is it allows to manipulate the collection. That means filtering, sorting, searching, adding, removing. All such activities on controls you can manage by using this. That means I will show you one simple option here. Same concept. I will add one more here as, okay, this is name, price, and this is vendor details. After that, I will add some photos. This dot photos is a collection of photos. That means, for example, I will tell you a simple real-time requirement. Suppose you have Google Drive or something. These days, one advantage is you can drag and drop and attach files. Even now, traditional approach is there in several websites. Suppose what you do is you see the government sites and all. They will say that, okay, for Aadhaar card, what proofs you want to upload? You select the proofs, right? You say that, so license, you select that some power bill, gas bill, so phone bill, some 3-4 details you mentioned. Then actually what happens is they will give one upload option. But you selected that I will upload 3 documents. Then they have to give 3 upload options. Am I right? That means you said I am going to upload 3 proofs. Then they have to give 3 uploads. You said I will upload 2 proofs. Then they have to give 2 uploads. That means how many uploads need to be there, that is changing dynamically. Form is changing dynamically. That's great. That means a form can change according to situation. So that is possible through this kind of collection. That means now what is photos? This dot FB, this dot FB dot array, it is an array. In this array, it is a generally array is not an ordinary string array. It is an array of controls. That means in this array, you have to have this dot FB dot control. One control is there. You know, array represents everything in a square brace. Am I right? This is an array. And you can see here in this array, we need to configure the controls. And you can see one control need to be defined with some data. What type of control? Default, any type you can configure. That means just I defined a string type control here to define. Now this at a time you can add any controls. By default it is having 1. You want one more control, then put a comma, then you can put this dot FB dot another control. By default, I want one control. Later, if you want, we will add it. Right now, your form is having a photos collection. I must able to access this also directly. Then what we will do? We will create an accessor for that. What is it? Get. What is it? This is what? Photos. Photos. We have to return this dot frm register dot what? Frm register dot, I am just using here photos. It's not working. I have to use what? Get. Get which field? Photos field. Actually, it is as what type? Form array type. That is a form array type. And you can see that this is the technique that you have to define. It says it is unresolved. Type form array, but actually what happens, I told you just now. Now this is referred as an control and it is an array type now. It is an array type. Photos is an array type. So it automatically identifies that it is a collection. You can see the array type is returned here. Array type is returned. Okay. Now what should happen is this photos we need to display in our UI. That means in the UI, in the user interface, I need to add a screen for that. I need to add a screen for that. Anywhere you can add, suppose I will give here. So another division, and here I will keep a heading, say upload photos, upload photos. Okay. And here I need to upload photos. For that, I need to give a file upload control. I need to give a file upload control. So I will put a container. In this container, input type is equal to what? File. Now what should happen? This should repeat for how many photos are there. It should repeat for how many photos are there. Then we have to use an iterator. What is it? ng for let item of what is the collection name? Photos. Photos is a form array. In that form array, you will have a collection of controls. That means photos is an array name. In that there is a collection called controls. Understood? This is a controls. That means this is the set of controls. And you can see it is saying it can be possibly null. It is saying it can be possibly null. That means doesn't contain the type. You can see it says it's an abstract control. It is a nullable type and it is a string or null array. It is saying that by default, it may be a null type array. Actually, if I directly use photos, then it will show off problem. Why problem? Because it says that it is not a collection. Now, if I write like this, so photos dot what? Photos is a collection of controls. And when I say controls, it says that it is not returning controls. It is not returning controls. Now you observe here, actually, it is verifying the type. Accessor is verifying the type, and you can see it is a simple ordinary. Now, how to mention that it is returning a collection of controls? How to mention that this is returning a collection of controls? Because actually here it is currently returning what? Null. It is currently returning null. So it is unable to identify that there is no controls inside it. Tell me, what is the type? Can you mention data type for an accessor? Can you mention data type for accessor? Suppose I am defining the type. It is of what type? Form array type. It is form array type. Now you see it returns an error. It returns. Now the return should be as what type? Form array type. It is an form array type. When you mention the return type for an accessor, then it will not return any null anymore now. It should return only an array. It is returning an array. Now you can see here controls is okay. Right? So this is completely new in Angular 15 onwards. Earlier you don't need this. Earlier you don't need to mention the type what to return. Means what to return for accessor you don't need to mention. Because when you mention the type, automatically it returns the type. And because you have to do some iterations on that, if it is returning null type, then it is unable to do iterations on. Then we have to configure the type as what type? Form array. If it is a type form array, then only it will accept an array, then only it will return the controls. Now you can see it is a array type. And array can contain collection of controls, and you are reading those controls and you are displaying. And remember, every control should have a control name. Na? Form control name. What should be the control name? You cannot give one name. Why? Because the name is replicated. With same name, several controls cannot be there. Then what we will do is, we will use a simple technique of, we will create I is equal to index. Am I right? Now, you know that for have a index property, the control name will be that I. Control name, I will give that I. That means first time it will be 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4. Because if I give a control name like photos, then what happens? Because it is array, second control also will be photos, then it will fail. Because with one name, there can be only one control. Then what we will do is, we will give index as its ID. We will give the index as its ID. That means in the UI, it should get that and display. You see it is showing choose file. Oh, I will do one thing just for your visual sake. I will keep it at the top. Huh? This upload photos part, I will keep at the top. Or somewhere here I will keep. Okay. Now you can see there is an option upload photos here. Upload photos, then I will give here class name. Class as margin bottom 3, margin top also 2. So that I can maintain some distance. Huh? Okay, so this is upload photos option is there. And how many controls are currently there? One control is there. Now I will do one thing. What I will do is, beside this control, I will put a button and I will say add more. I will keep a button add more. That means there is an add more. I will make this button look like class. So btn and btn link, I will make it as a link button. That means it looks like a link button, but it is a button. And when I click on add more, one more control should come. That means it should able to add one more control to my form. Then what we have to do here, so let's go and write a function for that. What is the function? The function is public. What is it? Add more click. On add more click, we need to add one more control into the form. Then how do we collect this dot? What is the form name? Control photos na? Photos is an array. Into the array, we have to use what? Push. We have to use push. Push what? This dot fb dot what? Control. We will push a new control into it. Then what happens is, add more click should fire up when user clicks this button. That means this button click, we will call a function. What is it? Add more click. Add more click. That function will fire up. Now you can see here, when I click on add more, so you see one more is added. I don't want it to be a button type. I will give as button. Otherwise it will work like a submit button, right? Now you can see, I click on add more, one more is added. I click on add more, one more is added. I don't want like that. Suppose I want to just put this above and add more is clicked, then one more control should be added. Then better what you do is, so you can keep this button from here and just keep outside the for loop. You can keep a button here. You can keep it. Okay. Now that means you see upload photos, add more. When I click add more, one more will come. I click add more, one more will come. And now what we will do is here, so we can display that, right? So what we will do now, every element, let's put a class margin top 3, 2 margin bottom 2 like this. So these are options. Add more, one more is added, one more is added. And I must able to remove them. Remove them. That means here we will put another button. Okay. This button we will put a span called class bi trash. And here I will keep the button as class btn and btn. So danger. Okay. Now you can see there is a delete button. I click on add more and one more will come. And when I click on delete, that should be deleted. You know how to delete. Already we learned logic for that. Huh? So that means what we have to do, we have to write public. What is it? Remove click. On remove click, we will expect the index number, which is what type number. That index number must be deleted. That means that must be removed. Now form array is very simple. You don't need splice. Earlier we used splice. Na? You don't need splice. You can just use this dot photos dot remove at which index number, whatever the parameter is. Remove at that specific index. You don't need splice. It has a special method called remove at. Now you see this should fire up when user clicks this button. On the button click, what should happen? Remove click should fire up. Into that we pass I. I is index number na. Right. So, and now you can see add more and I click delete, it will be removed. I can delete all. And add more, the new records, new options will be adding. This kind of forms are not possible in template approach. These are dynamic. You can add the elements dynamically. They can change. I just added a input file. Suppose what you done, you say add personal details, then personal details form can come. With controls, it can display a form. So this is the concept of dynamically adding elements and removing elements into the form. That is the advantage of which one? Reactive form. Reactive form. This is example of an array. That means here you need to know. So form array here, syntax is form array have methods like push. So form array have method like remove at. It uses the index number. So that is how you can manage. Example I will give here. So what is the example? So, and one more note I will give here. Accessor for form array from Angular15 for Angular15 requires the type to define. So we have to define the type. So get some photos. It is what type? Form array type. Then in that case, it should return this dot frm register dot what? Get what? Photos of what type? So of as what? Form array. That is how we need to configure. That's how we need to define and configure the options, right? So example, we will put some example here. So the example is this. What is that example we are having? So same reactive form dot component dot what? TS. In TS, I will add this all logic. Here we are using a form builder and reactive form dot component dot what? HTML. In HTML, this is the logic. So one new area we added for looping through form elements and adding them. Okay. This is important. This area is important for us. That means we are creating an iteration over form controls and we are repeating and handling it, right? So this is a complete example of how we can use reactive form. One more I have to show you here, that is reactive form validation. How validations will work here, that we'll see in next session. Right, in tomorrow, this is a simple one because already we learned validation, just you have to learn how to write them, right? And tomorrow, very major concept you are going to learn, that is Angular routing. This is the main concept required for developing SPA, single page applications. Routing, that is the major topic that we will see in tomorrow's session. Don't miss that topic. That is the key point for developing single page applications, right? That we'll see tomorrow. Okay. And today we will have a workshop for Bootstrap. For 3 days, we'll have workshop at 11. Offline people can come to new block. So beside Amoga Theater is there. Beside Amoga, our campus is there now. There in the first floor, our classroom will be. Okay. At 11, we will start. Okay. Right. Yeah.